For Georgia fans still celebrating on Sunday and hoping to watch a Falcons' fourth consecutive win, man, we got hit with a reality check. I think that's the easiest way to put it. You know, we were sitting up here high, but we did warn you, especially on the defensive side of things. There were a lot of problems that were kind of getting masked by red zone turnovers or red zone stops, and there was a lot of
penalties in the red zone.
Yeah, like there was a lot of bend that don't break. That, like, listen, if a team goes out there and executes correctly against you and turns those red zone trips into touchdowns, and God forbid has a big play or you make some turnovers, all this can unwind really, really quickly. And we saw that happen at home against the Seattle Seahawks, teams that came in losers of 3 straight, definitely needed a win. And they looked like a hungrier team that knew what was on the line, why the Falcons kind of, maybe they got a little full of themselves going into this matchup, because in this league, especially against good teams, you got to play perfect really to win. Every game is close. You've seen every Falcons game outside of this one has been basically a 1-score game. And the Falcons just seem to lose a little focus on both sides of the ball on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's week 7. It's a little early, in my opinion, for a first-year head coach's team to kind of start resting on their laurels. I mean, I said it coming into the week that, like, somebody need to go in and give him a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban speech where it's like, hey, you're not as good as you think. I don't know who you think you've beaten in this league, but you haven't won a damn thing. And I think, a lot of people are coming in and, not blaming Raheem Morris. Well, what does Raheem Morris provide as a head coach? He's great with relationships, which, builds in terms of player acquisition. But more than anything, he's that player's coach, the raw, I'm going to breathe life into you. And when a team doesn't show up at home 4-2 with the chance to go to 5-2 and take a real stranglehold on this division, doesn't show up and lacks energy, I don't know who else's fault that is. That is the head coach's fault. Raheem Morris isn't calling the offense. He's not calling the defense. His job week to week is overseeing the game plans and then provide some sort of motivation. I mean, it's a lot more than that, but overall, that's what it is. And Zach Robinson and Jimmy Lake fell flat on their faces this week, both of them. That has to stop. The buck stops at Raheem Morris. And more than anything, the energy was not there. On a beautiful Sunday, the roof was open. You had a perfect opportunity to beat a team on a 3-game losing streak, and you come out like you've already won everything. I think this was the best thing to happen to a Falcons team in quite a long time. I know we're all here mad and the pass rush this and Kirk Cousins that, Jimmy Lake this. They needed this. They thought, we're happy. And I do think this is a postseason. This is a playoff team no matter what. This doesn't tell me anything. I'm just glad somebody smacked them in the face and they were like, you're not as good as you think you are. You have to keep evolving and getting better.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I want to say one thing about the pass rush. Actually was pretty good on Sunday. It's kind of crazy because as bad as they have been rushing the passer, I actually think it was the best aspect of their entire game. Now, it was against a pitiful Seahawks
worst
defensive line, and everything else was just so bad that it's like something had to be. If there was one little shining light, it's like, yeah, they actually did take advantage. They had 3 sacks. I think they pressured Geno Smith on 50% of his dropbacks, which is the most he's been pressured. So they got some pressure. They had some unfortunate, especially one particularly unfortunate roughing the passer call for going low, which I just hate that rule, but it is what it is. But everything else was just dismal. Zach Robinson left the running game a little too early when we fell behind 2 scores, because that was something Bijan Robinson ran the rock really well. Should have stuck with that. And then Kirk Cousins has that terrible turnover on that fumble where he should have just tucked it or thrown it away or whatever. The defense, for the most part, AJ Terrell burnt toast. I mean, we could talk about that as much as you'd like, because he doesn't even look like a starting corner, let alone a cornerback number 1. You miss a field goal, you turn the ball over, like you give up a touchdown with less than a minute to go. They drive down the field because you're playing prevent defense, and somehow you give up a 40-yard pass with 7. I mean, it was just like, it was bad. It was just bad all the way around.
Well, I mean, I'm Geno Smith's biggest fan in Atlanta, I guess. I was saying it this week. Geno Smith is good. And you did mention it. We did get pressures, but we didn't convert a lot of them to sacks. And that's a tip of the hat to Geno Smith being absolutely nails.
I mean, like, he was making throws
he is a good quarterback in this league, and people just seemingly forget about him. Is he elite? Absolutely not. But he's a damn good quarterback.
Elite. I mean, he was under pressure getting hit and literally delivering dimes down the field.
He's a damn good quarterback.
I mean, he was playing – he he played about as well as you possibly can play at the quarterback position. Now, does he do that consistently? Probably not enough, but on Sunday, he played about as good. So, I mean, hats off to Geno Smith. You're 100% right about that, but the Falcons defense has to be better. Jimmy Lake has to be better.
Yeah, well, I've got so both coordinators fell flat on their face. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Zach Robinson, like you said, abandoned the run way too early. Like, there was a lot of game left where he could have slowed the game down with our running game and kind of started turning the possession game towards and he just went away. I think that was a terrible, a fatal mistake. But is anyone sitting here, are you really worried about Zach Robinson? Unless you're an extreme pessimist, your answer should be no. He's shown the ability to evolve and call different games depending on what the game is dictating, going to the run, letting Kirk Cousins sling it. I think everybody should be fine on this Monday with Zach. I don't feel that way with Jimmy Lake whatsoever. Jimmy Lake has done absolutely nothing to show me that he is capable of calling an NFL defense. I don't know if it's a personnel thing, Jimmy Lake doing what Raheem Morris wants thing. I don't know what it is. If there's, some sort of miscommunication between what Jimmy Lake wants and what the players are doing. I don't know what it is, but from a talent perspective, this is probably the best Falcons defense that we've had in a few years. We've got an elite safety tandem. Mike Hughes is proven capable of being that cornerback opposite of A.J. Terrell, who, has had a bad start to the season, but has shown capable of at least being a serviceable starter. Let's not act like, we're going to go out and bench A.J. Terrell.
No, and you can't. He's played benchable.
And we still got guys in the front seven. Like, Caden Ellis has completely disappeared after having a very good season last year. David Onyemata, same thing. Like, Matthew Judon had twice as many sacks and twice as many pressures last year in half the games. Did he just seemingly forget how to play football? Like, there is something going on the defense, but I don't think it's like a real talent thing. Like, the guys are there, and are they elite by any means? No, but they shouldn't be this bad.
I mean, listen,
we shouldn't be this bad.
This is a far more talented group than we had last year. And last year with Ryan Nielsen, before Grady Jarrett went down, this was a borderline top 10 defense.
At worst, average.
And frankly, this is a bottom third defense to this point in the season. 100%. And over the last, against any offense with a pulse, they have been absolutely abysmal. I mean, they have sat there, not rushed anyone, not changed anything, sat there in cover 3 and just let quarterbacks rip you to shreds. I mean, that is what I mean. This is Dan Quinn's Falcons defenses. It really is. I mean, this is what I saw when Dan Quinn was here. Sit back, rush 4, let the quarterback sit there forever because you don't have guys that can win one-on-ones and let them pick you apart. I mean, this is what I've seen the entirety. We talked about Matt Ryan's fire. That was what I saw the entirety of Matt Ryan's career. And with Ryan Nielsen, I mean, I know, listen, we couldn't keep him for whatever reason. It sucks when you lose a guy like that who clearly had a rapport with the players, and they were clearly learning something because we didn't have a talented defense last year, and we still were able to perform at a much higher level. But yeah, I mean, Jimmy Lake has to be better. And Jimmy Lake has to be better in the form that if this doesn't get better, we're talking about a new defensive coordinator.
We're talking about like, no, next year. I'm talking about like, if you want to win, I mean, Raheem Morris may have to take over this defense, at the bye week if something doesn't change, because at a certain point, this team is underperforming as a whole. Now, the offense last week, a little bit disappointing. Nobody should be worried all that much. Younghoe Koo misses a 50-plus yard field goal. Are we all that worried? No. Every single facet failed this past week. But at different points, the special teams, offense, and at one point, the defense did help them out. But more often than not, the defense is letting the team down as a whole. And no team has ever made a real deep postseason run with this kind of defense, especially the pressure or the pass rush.
And listen, this is another thing. I mean, you mentioned Raheem Morris, how much of this loss bears on his shoulder and not having his team ready. The two things that I said are one of the biggest things other than that I said that he's going to be responsible for is this isn't just Jimmy Lake's defense. This is also Raheem Morris's defense. So the struggles that they're having, we can just point Jimmy Lake, scapegoat, but Raheem Morris is just as involved in that defense too. Like he is as involved as anyone when it comes to game planning for that defense, and he sees them struggling. And if he's not in there making adjustments and stuff like that, he better start doing it. Yeah. But he definitely is. That's the thing. So he's just as culpable in my mind for the struggles of this Falcons defense. And I talked about it before the year. It's up to Lake and Raheem Morris, a combination of those two, to do what Ryan Nielsen was able to do last year. They haven't lived up to the billing, either of them.
No, and I don't think, when you look at the NFL trade deadline, it's in a couple of weeks, November 4th, I think. We can, hope and pray and all that stuff that a savior walks through. Let's get back to reality that, probably not. Hassan Reddick off the table. The pass rushers that are going to be on the table are not, these marquee guys. It's going to be a guy like Preston Smith. Calls have been coming about him. That would be an awesome Azeez Ojulari. UGA fans, we know how important he's been to that Giants defense. Even if it's in a supplementary role, the Falcons have absolutely nobody. We saw Lorenzo Carter miss this week. Arnold Ebiketie had less snaps this week than he did last week. And Lorenzo Carter didn't play. James Smith-Williams got a sack. But who is James Smith-Williams? No offense, my guy. I mean, you're a rotational pass rusher at best. I'm a nobody too, so I get it. But I'm just saying, we got to get somebody with a pulse on that defensive line.
But I also
again, who's going to come in and do it?
But I also don't know if that fixes the issue.
That's what I'm saying.
I think there may be bigger issues here, and we'll find out, because I do think Terry Fontenot is going to be aggressive, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily the fix. I think there might need to be a change in the way that we're approaching our defense. We'll see if that happens.